Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 298, Optimizing a Plant-Based Diet with Dr. Brooke Goldner.
In this episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we talked to Dr. Brooke Goldner about optimizing a plant-based diet, like you just said. I always repeat that.
Yeah, you do.
I do. But we wanted to let you know that this is Dr. Goldner, or Brooke's, second time on the show. The first time we talked about how she was able to cure her lupus, not just go into remission, but her blood test that she actually takes does not even show that she ever had it in her body to begin with. So she kind of reviews that story a little bit in this podcast, but then we get more into talking about general nutrition and the needs for the greater public, what is missing from a plant-based diet, what people might be doing wrong, and we really dive into pregnancy and pregnant women and postpartum as well. So we think that that will be interesting, not just to the women out there, but to the men who know women who are pregnant, who are bouncing around. Will I be safe? Will my baby be safe when I'm pregnant and eating a plant-based diet?
Yeah, and we also focus on the vitamins like you would think we would, like the vitamin D and the B12 that everybody commonly questions about. And we get into the minerals that are super important in optimizing the plant-based diet. And we also get Dr. Goldner to share an amazing recipe for smoothies that you're going to want to stay tuned to listen to incorporate into every day to give yourself the best nutrition possible. For those of you that don't know Dr. Goldner, she is a best-selling author and she's the founder of veganmedicaldoctor.com and goodbyelupus.com. She's a best-selling author to two of her books, Goodbye Lupus and Green Smoothie Recipes to Kickstart Your Health and Healing. She's also been featured in a bunch of documentaries, one of which is one of our favorites, Eating You Alive. So stay tuned. Check out the show notes at planttrainers.com/298 to get all the links that we talk about in today's show.
And remember, sharing is caring.
If you want a healthy, natural way to fuel your workouts or fire up your brain, Energy Bits are for you. Energy Bits are tiny spirulina algae tabs that are nutritionally dense, a source of mental and physical energy that is all natural and causes no stomach distress. They eliminate fatigue and hunger instantly with no caffeine, sugar, chemicals, gluten, or soy, just pure plant-based nutrition. One ingredient, 1 calorie, and 0 net carbs. I use them before workouts or sometimes just as a snack. They make me feel great and give me that extra energy boost I'm sometimes looking for. I also use Recovery Bits, which are tiny chlorella tabs. I use them after workouts or when I'm feeling hungry late at night. Visit energybits.com and order Energy Bits, Recovery Bits, Vitality Bits, or Skinny Bits and use the promo code PLANTTRAINERS to get 20% off your order at checkout. The link will also be in the show notes just in case you didn't get that all down. Improve your energy, wellness, and waistline all at the same time with Energy Bits. Check out Energy Bits today and feel the difference. Your brain and body will say thank you. And now for a moment of gratitude.
I'm grateful for the people who I've gotten to meet by being in this industry, whether I meet them because we're both health coaches or whether I meet them because they're great doctors or because they are listeners or we bump into each other and start talking at a conference, what have you. But when people come up to Toronto and say, hey, we're in Toronto, do you want to meet up? Let's go get a bite to eat. And the conversations that we have when we're actually sitting there one-on-one, I'm really grateful for those opportunities, the ones that are beyond the internet.
Our son has gotten into the sport of volleyball, and I'm pretty grateful for that. He knows that, well, a lot of us know that I do a lot of coaching in that sport. And he's kind of taken interest in it and wanted to pursue it. And so we put him into a program for volleyball and he's really come to like it. And I'm really just grateful that he's found something he enjoys to do and wants to pursue it.
On that note, I'm grateful that it's not hockey and I don't have to sit in a cold arena all the time.
Good one.
Dr. Brooke Goldner, thank you so much for joining us again on the Plant Trainers Podcast.
It's a pleasure.
We're excited to talk about all kinds of things with you today, especially what is missing from a plant-based diet. And before we do, we wanted to know if you have a moment of gratitude for us and our listeners.
Oh, goodness. I lived my entire life in gratitude. It's something I was taught from a young age by my grandparents who are Holocaust survivors. They told me every day you wake up and you're free, you're lucky. And that's what got me through a lifetime of illness. And to this very day, no matter what I have or what's going on around me, I always wake up in gratitude because life is a gift.
It definitely is. And, we can relate to that. We have grandparents ourselves who went through the Holocaust, and they really have a different way of seeing the world because they know what it's like to almost lose everything and to actually lose everything at some times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people went through it, end up very bitter. But in my family, they were just always grateful and always mindful and focused on what they had. And it was an extraordinary gift that they gave me. I always say there's a gift to every pain. There's a gift to illness, and there's a gift to loss. And that was a gift they taught me, was to constantly be in a state of gratitude.
Well, that definitely goes together with our mission here at Plant Trainers.
Awesome.
So, Dr. Goldner, you were on episode 167 of the Plant Trainers podcast talking with us, and I'll put a link to in the show notes to that episode so people can go back.
167.
167, yeah. So when people go back and listen to that. But for all the new people that we have listening to the show, and they may not have the second to go back right now, maybe you can give a bit of a background on your illness that you previously mentioned and how things are going with you now.
Absolutely. So what most people know me for is my journey through conquering lupus. So I am a board certified physician and I treat patients. But before I was ever a doctor or an author or anything else, I was a patient. And so I was diagnosed with lupus at 16. At the time, I had the whole sequela of rashes and arthritis, migraines, and I also was in stage 4 kidney failure. So for me, since 16, there was always a battle to just be alive and be functional. I took 2 years of chemotherapy and high dose steroids and a lot of other medicines just to get me through that period of time, get me stable. And I spent a lot of my life kind of going back and forth between remission and illness. Remission meaning, I still had an illness. I still had some arthritis. I still needed medicine. I still had positive labs, but I wasn't actually dying at the moment of lupus, versus times where I would get sick again, like in medical school when I dealt with mini strokes and I collapsed from having a blood clot, which thankfully passed and I was able to recover from, but was very terrifying at times. And, I just stayed very focused in my life on purpose and passion. And I felt like, and none of us really know how much time we have on this planet, but we can choose what we do with it and how we focus. And that was the gift of lupus for me, was I'm going to just try to be a doctor because that's what I feel in my heart is what I was born to do. And if I only get to do it for a few years, at least I did what I wanted to do for a few years rather than be home and be disabled. So that was how I lived my life. And it wasn't until I was 28 years old when I met my husband, Thomas Tadlock, who was already a celebrity trainer at the time, who had developed a protocol for rapid fat loss. And he was training people who were appearing on MTV, helping them get, fat loss really quickly using hyper-nourishment, a huge supply of eating, rather than usually when people are trying to get skinny quick, they don't eat, right? So he put me on a nutrition plan because he wanted to marry me in spite of being sick, which was an incredible thing. I mean, to tell a man, I can't have your children. I'll probably be disabled in a few years and you're going to have to take care of me. That's not quite a selling point when someone proposes to you. But he just wanted to be with me however he could and take care of me. But I asked him to train me for the wedding. And so he put me on this nutrition plan, which at the time, it's kind of like modern day paleo, but this was a long time ago. So, this was like over 14 years ago before that was even a coined phrase. But basically it was high amounts of raw vegetables and omega-3s and water and, really awesome exercise and also free range meat. But I'd been an animal lover since I was a kid and I didn't eat meat. I was a vegetarian, which in the 80s was pretty extreme. I didn't even know what a vegan was. I thought we were the extremists, eating so much eggs and milk, but not eating any meat. But because I wouldn't eat meat, and he made me give up all that saturated fat so I could lose weight faster because my cheese addiction was not helping the fat loss. I accidentally ended up 100% plant-based for the first time in my life. And long story short, within a few months, not only had I lost over 20 pounds, went from a size 11 to a size 3, ripped, but all the symptoms of my lupus were gone. And when I went to get my blood tests, all the tests were negative. And that was 14 years ago this year. So after 12 years of severe chronic illness, between mini strokes and kidney failure and all these things, 12 years of my life that way, within a short period of time after becoming 100% plant-based and eating the most nutritious foods, the disease disappeared. I've had 2 sons. I was told I could never have children. It would kill me. I've had two healthy boys who are just extremely, they're amazing. I mean, they're intelligent, they're active, they're talented musicians. It's just an extraordinary gift to get to be their parent. And I am still to this day, I'm in my 40s. I just celebrated my 42nd birthday last week, and I'm fit and strong and healthy. And so it really changed the way I practice medicine. So when I healed, I was an intern. And right when you're an intern, it's like, I finally graduated medical school. I know everything. And right when that happened, I found out I don't know anything, because everything about my health changed. And it was due to what I ate, which I wasn't taught anything about eating in medical school. So none of that seemed to make sense. And it really didn't. I didn't even realize it happened until I tried to have my first son and I stayed healthy. And I went, all right, something really is wrong, or something used to be wrong that's right now. And so I ended up retiring from my career. I was a medical director at a nonprofit treating the homeless. I loved my job. But I felt really compelled that once I understood why I got better and I was able to replicate that in other people, I felt like there was nothing else I should be doing but spreading this message of hope and healing, and help people understand that chronic illness can be reversed, even severe illness, and there's never too late to take back your health. So my husband and I, just like you guys work together, my husband and I both work together on a daily basis, helping people reverse disease full time. And when we're not working directly with clients, we're traveling around the country on stages, teaching people, documentaries, like whatever we can do to help spread this message, because the message has to come from the ground up, because it's definitely not coming from the government back down to us. So that's the short version of my story.
It's definitely not. And we love that story. And for people who have questions and want to know a little bit more in-depth detail, like Adam mentioned, good old 167 of the Plant Trainers podcast, they can go back and they could check that out to hear more. So you talked about helping people to become plant-based, and we see so many people out there who are trying to reverse diseases, trying to make sure that the little bit of trouble that they're in does not accelerate. And we see a lot of people hopping on board with a plant-based diet. However, you don't need to know too much, but at the same time, there are some gaps that people are missing, which make them either not feel good, not have enough energy, or maybe not get all the nutrients that they need. So we wanted to talk about today what is missing from a plant-based diet.
And it's an interesting thing, right? Most people don't think about it until they try to eat plant-based, right? Like what most people who are deficient in something are eating the standard American diet, right? The people who, no one ever thinks, what am I missing, when they're eating a burger and fries, right? But then when they go to eat a kale salad, they get scared that they're missing something, right? So most people who are missing things are missing micronutrients. So we have a friend who is a biochemist who actually creates supplements, but he's a biochemist that's done blood work on people to figure out what are people typically missing. And most people are missing minerals. And do you guys know where minerals tend to come from?
The earth.
Yes. So plants are where minerals come from. So and that makes sense, right? Because most people, unfortunately, not just in America, but in other countries, are eating very little plant food, and they're eating tons of meat and processed food and very little plant food. And if they do eat plant food, they're eating fruit. And fruit, while it does have vitamins in it, tends to have very little mineral content, because by the time minerals travel up the tree trunk to get to that apple, not much gets there. So you want plants that are close to the ground. So kale and broccoli and spinach and other things that are growing right in the soil, those are usually the vegetables, and those are the most rich in minerals. So that was an interesting thing. When we were first trying to decide what is it that helped me reverse my lupus, and so fast, we started doing research on what was I missing that I started getting, and what did I give up that was making me sick, right? And so we found this research, and it was really interesting that people tend to be mineral deficient. That's people who eat meat-based diets, right? So that's pretty common. But when you're switching into a plant-based diet, there's just so much variety, right? I mean, am I going to do it with the starch-based plan and just eat tons of rice and potatoes? Or am I going to do, the strict no oil plan? Or am I going to do this keto plan that tells me to eat coconut oil every day? Or there's just so many different types of issues or different types of programs. It's confusing to know where to start. So for me, I usually, I get people who come to me for nutrition plans because they've tried different things and failed. Usually people don't want to go with the most strict version. They'd rather start with, potatoes and rice and see how that goes for a while, and then see, that sounds more fun before I have to start eating any raw vegetables or things like that. But I get to see a lot of people where things went wrong. And I thought that was a really great topic to say, what could possibly go wrong when it comes to eating plant-based? In general, it's the healthiest thing you can do. So any plant-based diet is going to be better than a meat-based, processed food-based diet. The problem we see is, okay, number one, if somebody goes to a vegan diet, but it's not really whole food plant-based, right? So a vegan diet means you don't eat anything that comes from animals, but that's pretty much it, or involves abuse of animals. For example, I consider palm oil not to be vegan because they're killing animals to cut down the rainforest in order to get the palm. If you're vegan and you love animals, that's not vegan, right? So anything where animals could potentially be hurt or killed is not considered vegan. But that leaves everything else open, right? So French fries boiled in oil is still vegan.
Processed foods, processed plants, right?
Oh my gosh. Nowadays you go to Walmart and you can get vegan burgers, vegan hot dogs, right? Those things are not animal-based, but they're not healthy. So one thing I see sometimes is people are just, they're thinking that if it's vegan, it's healthy, and that's not necessarily the case. So if you're eating processed foods are inflammatory and they're going to stimulate illness. Now, if you're healthy, you can have a processed food once in a while. I'll eat an Impossible Burger sometimes if I go out, but I've been healthy 14 years. I've got zero health issues. And if I want to do that, I can do that. I know that it's creating some damage, but I also know that I'm going to heal that damage by the time I wake up in the morning. If you're trying to battle an illness, or if you're trying to battle obesity, anytime you're spiking your inflammation using the processed foods, you're going to slow down your progress. So that's one thing that a lot of people fall into. And I see that a lot where people come to me who were whole food plant-based when they started, meaning everything comes from a whole food source where you know where it came from, it's not been processed and no oils and all that stuff. And then after a while, they kind of get comfortable and they start creeping in these processed foods and things. And then they wonder why their health went off track. So that's one thing that you can definitely make a difference on. But the subtleties of the other whole food plant-based diets are where I see people struggle the most. So the first thing I see as a big issue are people not eating enough vegetables, and especially not enough raw vegetables. A lot of people, they go to a plant-based diet and they're eating a lot of beans and rice, and they're eating a lot of cooked vegetables, but they're not really getting any raw vegetables. And so what tends to happen is they feel better at first, because they got off animal products and they got off processed foods, and they go, oh my gosh, I feel better. My energy is a bit better. And then they hit this plateau where they aren't feeling better anymore, and they start to go downhill. And it's because they're not getting the most nutrient dense foods. They're not getting those minerals from those plants in the ground. And once you cook things, you drastically drop their content of their phytonutrients that are in them. I recommend that people get 50 to 70% of their diet from raw foods, especially vegetables. And that way you definitely have great health, and it's easy.
What I find very often with a lot of the people that we're coaching is that not only are they not getting enough raw vegetables or vegetables in general, they're just not getting enough food, because people are used to cutting carbs, portion control, and deprivation because they're trying to lose weight. And then they apply that to the plant-based diet as well. And then they find themselves lethargic and with headaches and iron deficient because they're just not getting enough food inside their body, period.
100%. So those same people probably complain that they're hungry all the time too, right?
Or end up binging on the junk food.
Yeah. So when you eat meat, for example, that putrefies in your gut and it doesn't move and it gets stuck there. And then if you're eating a lot of fatty foods, it sits in your gut and you feel really full, but you're not getting any more nutrition from it. You just feel full. When you're eating foods that are really high in fiber and lots of vegetables and things like that, they just move right through your gut. So, you're pooping more than ever. Right? Everything's moving out, and then you're hungry again. And so, yes, there is a retraining. When I help people, I always call it hyper-nourishment. I'm trying to oversupply the nutrients that help your body heal. And the only way I can do that is if you're constantly putting more in. I always tell them, if your stomach was the size of your torso, I could heal you so much faster. But it's this tiny little pocket. So every time there's an opening, we got to put more stuff in it so that I can get you better. And that works for metabolism too. So if it's something like raw vegetables, you can eat, the more of them you eat, the faster you lose weight, the more energetic you are, and the faster you get your health back. And that's very different than that old paradigm of if you eat more than a certain amount, you're going to get fat. So it definitely is a switch that, wait a minute, so if I eat more, vegetables, if I eat more healthy foods, I actually get fit faster and I get healthy faster. Yes. And that's why I love that. When people, my folks are always complaining they're too full all the time. I went, that's all right. Be full, it's great. But yes, I think you're absolutely right. People don't realize that. They see that as a problem. They go, oh, I'm hungry all the time. I'm just not getting fulfilled by a vegan diet. I'm like, no, you're just not fulfilled because you're not eating enough food. So you're absolutely right. That's definitely an issue. And you don't want to fill yourself with crap. You just continuously eat all day. And it's normal to want to graze, to eat, and a couple hours later want to eat something else. And that's great. Do that. But yeah, don't say, oh, I usually eat breakfast and then lunch. And I used to be satisfied and now I'm not, so it's not working for me. So you're right. People do, they make the wrong conclusions too. I always warn people off of conclusions. I'm also a psychiatrist, so I call people on their mental game all the time, because usually the way they mess up is they tell themselves conclusions about things that aren't true. So they'll say, oh, I'm not satisfied between meals, therefore this isn't giving me enough nutrition, therefore I need to go back to eating meat. And I go, no. You need to start with, I'm hungry. Okay, cool. You know what the answer is? Eat more. Done. Solved.
There's so much more great information coming your way, but before we get to that,
we want you to check your stash of supplements. What are they made of? While it's true that you can mimic a vitamin's chemical makeup and put it into a supplement, your body won't recognize it, or more importantly, won't assimilate it in the way that it does whole food sources of nutrition. We've both been taking Via Source for the last few months. It's got vitamin D and B12, so we gave it a try. We were completely impressed, even Adam, and it's harder to impress him. Our bodies recognize Via Source as food because it's made up from food. It's got a cup of sea vegetables, 20 plus nutrients, 2 cups of leafy greens, 2 cups of berries, and a lot more. While we're from the school of eat your nutrients, we also recognize that sometimes the body and the diet need a little extra punch when you're stressed, while you're traveling, or if your body's not in stellar condition.
Via Source has so many benefits. It supports cellular health, general nutrition, and wellness throughout the body. It's 100% vegan, non-GMO, gluten-free, 100% plant cellulose capsules. So if you're going to take a multivitamin, this is the one to take. It's Plant Trainers approved. We have a link to information about Via Source and its amazing qualities in the show notes and at planttrainers.com/shop. Please check it out there and click on the link to book a call with Shoshana so that she can make sure that it's the right product for you and help you get your hands on some. And now, back to the show. They eat more vegetables. That means they're taking in more fiber, which means that they're feeling more full, which means they're going to the bathroom more often. But if they're going to be taking in, let's say, beans, for example, and they're taking in way more beans than they're used to, how's that going to make them feel, and is that okay for them to do?
Well, it just depends on their gut situation. So when I'm looking at deficiencies in people's diet, it's always, I've never seen a bean deficiency. I heal people of chronic disease constantly and within a matter of weeks, and they're doing it with tons and tons of raw vegetables, no beans. I let them get the beans back on board after they're, past the initial healing phase. But you can have them and it doesn't hurt you. It's just that don't fill yourself up with beans and rice all day long and skip the vegetables, because those are what your body needs. But it depends on your goal too, right? So if you're working with your clients and they're trying to put muscle on, beans and rice are awesome because it stimulates weight gain, right? So if you do the right exercise and you combine it with beans and rice, you're going to put on some weight and you'll put it in the right places. You're going to put it in your muscle. Of course, you gain a little fat with muscle, but hey, you want that weight gain, right? But if someone's trying to do a fat loss program, then they don't want to eat that stuff because they don't want to stimulate weight gain. They want to stimulate fat loss. So fat loss comes from eating most of your calories coming from the raw vegetables. It's really, these are the things that tend to be missing. I'll put them together and tell you why. Is one, raw vegetables for sure. I mean, even the people who eat raw foods, it's usually fruit. So they're eating fruit plus beans and rice, right? We need the minerals. We need all the really densely packed phytonutrients that are in vegetables, especially in the raw form. Omega-3 fatty acids, really deficient in meat diets too. A lot of people are deficient in meat diets. But when it comes to building a fast metabolism, and by fast metabolism, I mean that your body does what you ask it to. So it doesn't mean you're just skinny. It means when you want to build muscle, you can. When you want to lose fat, you can. When you want to heal a disease, you can, right? So it means your body is responsive. Build a fast metabolism, you need omega-3s because they incorporate into your cell membranes and they make your cells responsive to signals. And they also create your anti-inflammatory immune system. So if people are deficient in omega-3s, they're going to have trouble healing. And that's another thing I see missing in a lot of vegans, especially people who follow the plant-based plans that tell you to avoid all fat. Those are awful for the long term, that not every fat is created equal. So yes, you don't want to eat oils. And I definitely agree. Do not eat coconut oil. Do not eat all these oils. But flax seeds, chia seeds, avocados, actual coconuts, not coconut oil, but whole food fats are so important, especially omega-3s. And actually the only oil I allow people is flaxseed oil that's been cold pressed because it works. But if you're avoiding those, you're not going to get a full recovery, or you can get sick more easily. It also affects your brain function as well as your metabolism. And so I'm seeing a lot of folks that are deficient in these areas. So I can give you an example. You know Ellen Jaffe-Jones?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, who doesn't know Ellen Jaffe-Jones in this world, right? So she's, a vegan athlete who's written like 4 books or 6 books. She's written a lot of books, all right, about how to be a healthy vegan athlete. She was like PETA's sexiest vegan over 50 or something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, here's someone who's been in the plant-based world forever. She used to do cooking demonstrations for a doctor that does starch-based plans, right? So she has been in this world for like 20 years. And this year, she developed psoriasis. And she's been very public about this. She told me I should share her story. So just so you don't think I'm like, share. So this year she got psoriasis, which is an autoimmune disease. And Joel Kahn, you know Joel?
He's just on the show a bit ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm from New York. So I know how to speak Northeast. So I loved this. He just sent me a text message that said, "This is Ellen, fix her." I said, yes, sir. Right. So she was eating a diet that was mostly, cooked vegetables and lots of beans and potatoes and rice and all that kind of stuff, but no attention to raw foods, no omega-3 fatty acids. And within 2 weeks, I teach people how to get all their raw foods and omega-3s by just making green smoothies, because it's so freaking easy, right? You don't have to sit there and eat a big salad or grind up your flax seeds. You put it all in a Vitamix blender, you put in your greens, you put in your flax or chia seeds, add a little fruit flavor and water, blend that up, and you drink it. And so we put that in her life. I got her hydration up way higher. Most people are very dehydrated, and that your skin is the last organ to get hydration or nutrition. So psoriasis shows up in the skin first, right? So we had a signal that she wasn't nourished enough and she wasn't hydrated enough. So we added the smoothies, got her water intake up, and within 2 weeks, her plaques were all fading away. And she said to me, she goes, "I've been plant-based for all this time. Why did I get sick?" And my answer is, well, I mean, we never know for sure. But number one, she probably would have gotten psoriasis 15 years ago had she not been plant-based, because she would have been eating something inflammatory like meats, right? And number two, she ran out of nutrition. She wasn't nourishing herself enough. And the evidence is, as soon as we add those smoothies in, boom, everything disappears. And now she's doing great. So she was really excited, and she shared it all online and on social media that she found a solution that got her back to superior health again. So that's the biggest thing I see missing from people's lives, is they pay no attention to their raw vegetable intake. I really want, if you're healthy, at least half your food comes from raw vegetables. Easy way you do that is green smoothie for breakfast, and maybe a green smoothie later on in the day as a snack, and then you have your other lunch and dinner cooked how you like it. Or you can make every plate half salad. Or you eat a giant salad, but it has beans and quinoa mixed in. You know what I mean? So it's like we have a huge amount of raw foods. And if you're trying to reverse a disease, then more than that, make more of it come from there. Make sure you're getting omega-3s every day. I have great results using flax and chia seeds. If people are healthy, a handful a day. Your handful is your dose. People who are sick, I start them at 1/2 cup a day, which is about the same as 4 tablespoons of the cold pressed flax oil. And hydration. Don't neglect your water intake. If you don't get enough water, you will get sick, even if your nutrition's perfect. And I've been doing this. I've been healing people about a decade from disease, and I see sometimes where people eat perfectly, and until they get their water up over about 96 ounces, they don't start reversing their illnesses. So, most people think they're doing a good job if they get 64, but most people don't get 64. They're getting like 20 ounces a day, maybe less. So I usually say a 1/2 ounce per pound of your body weight is a good starting point. And if you're trying to reverse a disease, you go 1 ounce per pound until you hit like a gallon. And you guys probably have seen that, right? If someone's trying to get really fit, a gallon of water a day, they get fit faster, right?
Absolutely. It's what our body needs, right? And I think that people are kind of going, oh, I thought this podcast was going to be all about vitamin D and B12, because those are the things that we're always talking about that is actually void in a plant-based diet, but
Yep.
going beyond that and looking at those vegetables that are missing. What about iodine?
So I don't do a lot of focus on iodine because I haven't seen an issue. I usually recommend that people do eat some source of iodine, whether it's through a little bit of sea vegetables here and there. My mother-in-law is visiting, so she just made us some veggie sushi that had, it's just avocado and cucumber wrapped in a nori roll. Like, I like it dehydrated, not roasted, so you can get some nutrition from it. Avoid the roasting. Or you can eat like some dulse or other things. But even a little bit of table salt has iodine in it. I usually don't really worry about it unless someone's already hypothyroid and say, okay, is there some source of it? But I don't really see it come up much. I do like what you brought up. I knew that was the case. Most people, when they think of what's deficient in your plant-based diet, is going to be, oh, your B12 or this, that. But no, what's usually deficient is actually deficient in every diet. And by the way, even for people who aren't ready to give up meat yet, I always start them with what they're missing, because when they start adding greens and omega-3s and leafy vegetables and cruciferous vegetables and water and omega-3s, they start feeling so good that it's easy for me to convince them to give up meat, because I'm like, see how good you feel on those vegetables and see how bad you felt on the meat. And then boom, they're ready to give it up because they can feel the difference, versus when you make someone give something up first and they feel all depleted. And then they're like, oh, I give up my favorite food and all I get's this green drink, So everybody is missing those things, those vegetables and omega-3s and water. But if you want to have optimal health and also have the best impact on every living thing on the planet, including the environment, then you want to be 100% plant-based, and you'll have the best health, the best fitness, and also live a really beautiful, compassionate life. But those other things are an issue. I mean, D is a hormone. It's not something you're supposed to get from food. It's something your body's supposed to make. But most people don't make it, including every single person I see on a meat-based diet is low in vitamin D. So anyone who blames that on being vegan doesn't know what they're talking about. People spend very little time in the sun, and when they do, they wear sunblock, and they're not in it enough. And so most people get deficient. Plus, D is a hormone that's used up in the inflammatory immune system. So if you have any kind of inflammation going on, then you're using up D faster than you can make it. So pretty much everyone I see is deficient. And if someone's deficient, I tell them to take a D3 supplement and get it back up to normal. And then, be in the sun and do other things. But just going in the sun 15 minutes a day won't fix a deficiency. And if you have a deficiency, you're not going to heal. It's going to stop you. So that's where it comes into play. And B12, I think I kind of an outlier on the B12 issue, because I think because there's no set scientific thing that says here's how much B12 you need. What I do is I just test people. You get your B12 and homocysteine test. If you're low, take a B12 supplement. If you're high, you're doing good. And I don't go by the whole every single person should take a B12 supplement 3 times a week, or it doesn't make sense to me because not everyone's deficient. So I don't ever want to take a supplement if I don't need a supplement, right? I don't think that makes sense. And so some people like fortified food, like in my family, we don't take any B12 supplements, but we love fortified nutritional yeast. And when we've gotten tested, our B12 levels are super high. So I don't need a supplement and I'm doing great. And I even asked, T. Colin Campbell, right? The coolest part about getting to teach, the coolest part of teaching on stage all the time is actually like helping thousands of people heal right from the stage is awesome. But also I get to meet and hang out with really awesome people. So T. Colin Campbell is a really sweet man. And we were hanging out backstage one day and I said, all right, man, what do you think about B12? Let me hear it from you, because you're the guy who talks about how vitamins are bad, right? So what is it? Do you take a B12 supplement? And he said, yes. And I said, why? And he said, because my wife makes me.
That's great.
So he even said, he goes, I don't know if we should be taking them or not, but my wife makes me take it because we're just not sure. So for me, I would rather just test it. And I tell everyone, just get the test done. If you're low, whether you eat meat or not, you need to supplement it and get it back online. If you're not low and you're normal, you need a B12 source. So whether you're fortified foods or whether you get it from a supplement that you take a couple times a week or something, whatever that is, it makes more sense when you test yourself first and find out the actual numbers. So I know I'm a little bit of an outlier on that. Like Michael Greger and I argue about that, where he thinks everyone should take it constantly, but I just haven't had that experience in all of my years doing this. I haven't had that not work where people just test it and take it as needed. I haven't seen anybody have a struggle with that. So
That's funny. We didn't ask T. Colin that question when he was on the show a couple of weeks ago, but I do agree 100% about getting your blood tested. I found out that my kids had more than enough vitamin B12, so I stopped giving them their supplement as often because they're getting a lot through plant-based milks or nutritional yeast and all of that, so they don't take it as often, where I was a little bit deficient in it, so I knew that I needed to make sure that I was showing up and taking it when I should. But what I see with people when they get their blood tests and they bring them is that if they are deficient in something and they are supplementing, that also gives me an idea of how well the body is working at actually absorbing what they're taking in. And if they're not absorbing what they're taking in, what is the reason for that?
Right. Well, with B12, there is, in order to absorb it orally, you need something called G protein in your gut. And what happens is that protein binds to the B12, and that's how you absorb it. So there are some folks who don't make enough G protein, or their G protein doesn't function well, and they just can't absorb it properly. Usually that happens as we get older. Elderly people tend to not have as much of that G protein, and so their B12 levels tend to drop as they get older. So if that's the case, if you're taking an oral supplement and your level is not rising, you might not be absorbing it because of that issue. So then what do? You either take an under the tongue supplement that dissolves under your tongue, goes right into your bloodstream because there's a rich blood supply right under your tongue, or you can take the injectable form. So B12 is one of those things where if you're taking in a large amount and it's not coming up, you're probably just not able to absorb it, and you want to switch to taking, like I said, a sublingual or an injectable supplement.
So I want to switch the topic just a touch. You talked at the beginning about, being plant-based and being able to have your children because you healed and you weren't even sure if you were ever going to have children originally. Mm-hmm. And having, a plant-based pregnancy, there's lots of people who say, my doctor told me that while I'm pregnant or while I'm trying to get pregnant, I should be eating meat. And we do know that these doctors clearly do not have enough information on a plant-based diet or nutrition themselves. So what can we say to pregnant women or women who are trying to get pregnant, want to make sure that they're getting everything that they need in a plant-based diet?
It's an excellent question, and it comes up a lot, especially because a lot of old school OBs will actually break down macronutrients, like, oh, you need this much protein, this and that. It's total nonsense. I mean, we don't need to count our macronutrients to have a baby. What we need to do is make sure that we're feeding ourselves as if we were feeding our child. So I always say parenthood or motherhood really starts at conception. From the moment you become pregnant, you are now a parent to that child. And everything you feed yourself will turn into the cells that become that child. So the best thing you can do is eat a super anti-inflammatory diet while you're pregnant, and you're going to build an amazing child. So if you're eating tons of vegetables and fruits, and the grains you get are all unprocessed grains, and you're making sure you're getting your omega-3s every day. I mean, omega-3s, they've actually studied this, that mothers who take omega-3s during their pregnancy have higher IQs in their children. And so I remember my OBGYN told me that I was not to overshoot. She goes, your kid's already going to be brilliant. Let's not overdo it. They won't be relatable. And I like my OB because she had a good sarcastic sense of humor that I jibed with. But she was very open. She was terrified when I got pregnant because I told her I used to have lupus, and she goes, "There's no such thing as used to have lupus," and she freaked out. But after I was sent back from high risk OB and they said I was healthy, the first time around she was a bit nervous, but then after that, when I had my second kid, she started asking me for advice. She goes, you look more fit when you're pregnant than I do full year round not pregnant. So I need to know what it is that you do. So she started thinking about becoming vegan because she'd never seen anyone be pregnant and look the way I did, where I just was fit. I would gain my belly weight. And then, within 9 days after having my first baby and 14 days after having my second baby, I looked like I never had a baby, except for the fact that you could tell I was nursing. A certain area was bigger up top. But my belly, everything just snapped right back.
I'm sure your husband didn't mind.
No, and actually it was funny. When I had my first son, my husband owned the largest boot camps in Orange County, California at the time. And when I put on my clothes 9 days after birth and I was wearing my skinny jeans that I'd worn before I got pregnant, he did a full photo shoot. He's like, this is going to be amazing for business because I have clients that haven't lost their baby weight yet and their kids are in college. So like there's something going on here, right? So the point is you're going to have the healthiest pregnancy possible when you focus on the healthiest foods. It doesn't make any sense that you would need different food to build the baby than you would feed it after they're born. So if you're planning to have plant-based kids so they can have optimal health, start it out in your womb. And the cool thing is, I've helped multiple people reverse their diseases while they were pregnant. So people come to me with, especially with autoimmune disease, because that is what I'm known for, is reversing autoimmune disease. Well, autoimmune disease and pregnancy are a dangerous combination. One, you have a much higher chance of miscarriage. Number two is oftentimes the mother ends up in the ICU afterwards because her disease will flare. So it's a very dangerous thing to do. So I've had moms come to me who found me while pregnant. And there's someone pregnant right now in my rapid recovery group. And so that's a 6-week group where I help people every day to reverse their illnesses. So when they come to me pregnant, I'm able to reverse their diseases while they're pregnant. And I do it on a 100% raw diet. So they're eating only raw vegetables, raw fruits, some nuts and seeds, lots of omega-3s, high water, and they're healing their disease while pregnant. So it doesn't make any sense that something that can reverse a disease could also somehow be bad for your baby, right? I mean, it's quite the opposite. And the cool thing is, everyone that I've seen through their pregnancy, healing during pregnancy, every one of them has told me their babies are abnormally strong and smart compared to their other kids and compared to normal kids. So I look at like my Alex, who's 6 now, he is so muscular and strong, right? Both my kids are super high IQ. My older son just got 100% on the standardized testing for Texas for math. My younger son skipped he went into first grade at 5 years old. He was already reading at a 3rd grade level. I mean, they're so highly functional. They never get sick. My 10-year-old last got a cold when he was 2. How is it, like when I went to medical school, I learned that that's not normal, that kids are supposed to get sick every season, right? So if you or your kid get sick every winter, you're not nourished enough. Your immune system doesn't work right. So all the foods that are the best for you normally are the best for you pregnant. And, I was talking to Dr. Sarzad, both of them, who wrote the Alzheimer's Solution. You know those guys?
Yeah. So, I don't remember what number they were.
Yeah, they were on the show too.
They were one of those numbers. So we were having dinner with them and we were talking about our kids, and their kids are also ridiculously smart. Now, of course, there's some smart parents going on here, but they're saying kind of what we're saying, that our kids are way smarter than us. It's kind of scary. Their daughter already has like a business at 11 years old, right? I mean, they're just ridiculous. And they were telling me that so these guys have done research on the brain and Alzheimer's. And they said if a child is on a 100% plant-based diet from conception or even from babyhood, they actually, what they're seeing is it looks like they maximize their IQ potential. So when we give our kids meat and oils and processed foods and eggs and all of those things, not only are we making them more susceptible to things like diabetes and heart disease and autoimmune disease, we're actually dumbing them down. And when you feed them well from the womb all the way up, when you feed them the best diet, the plant-based diet, they optimize their potential to have the best IQ because they've got the healthiest brains they could possibly have had. And that really blew me away. I'm like, that's what I'm seeing in my kids. And it's a beautiful gift, although it does make for challenging parenting. Amazing gift you can give your kids, that you actually can make them smarter. So any doctor who tells you that somehow you need to eat meat while you're pregnant, just nod and smile and ignore that, because even the experts in Alzheimer's will tell you that you're damaging the brain every time you eat animal products. And when you're pregnant, you're building their brain. So the last thing you want to do is do anything that could potentially damage it.
Yeah, you want to build them up. And you talk about hyper-nourishing after giving birth in one of your blogs. Can you quickly elaborate on that?
Right. So hyper-nourishing means that we're oversupplying the best nutrients to the body. And what I find is a lot of times when pregnant, at least for myself, but for a lot of other people, pregnancy is a survival game, right? If you're not puking a lot and you can eat whatever you want to, then you're good. And so, the women I've seen reverse their diseases and doing all the foods I said, thankfully, they were able to eat whatever I told them to. I had one woman who came to me already pregnant, and she could not keep anything down. And so there's nothing I can do. Like if I can't feed you, I can't fix you, because all of my healing protocols go through the mouth, right? So I like to heal people before they get pregnant, because then we know you can eat whatever you want. But a lot of times when people are pregnant, there's a period of time where they can't nourish themselves as well because they're puking all the time. And so when they give birth is a time to replenish. The good thing is when you're pregnant, if you can't eat enough, your body just steals everything from your body. The downside is you are now in a malnourished state after you gave birth. If they pulled everything out of your own body for their own survival, you need some more. So if you have given birth, or even no matter what, but especially after giving birth, if you want to restore your health as quickly as possible, you want to restore your metabolism as quickly as possible, and you want to make the best milk on the planet that's going to build a superhuman baby, then you want to focus on hypernourishment. So I really encourage people to fill up their blender. You make it about 75% green. You put in that handful to a half a cup of flax or chia seeds, put in fruit for flavor in the last bit, fill that up with water to the level of the greens. You blend that up, right? And you put that in the fridge. And over the course of the day, you keep pouring glasses of that for yourself. It's going to get you feeling much healthier. It's going to rebuild all your vitamins and minerals within your body. It's going to restore your cellular health with all your omega-3s, get your metabolism fast so you can drop that baby weight really quickly. And like I said, you're going to make milk that's just the best milk in the world. I mean, my milk was usually green and gold because it separates out when you put it in the fridge. And it was the gold from the flaxseed oil, and then the green from all the smoothies. And I made so much milk, I used to donate to 4 families in addition to feeding my babies. And I had multiple women tell me that mine was like the top shelf. I used to advertise it on the milk site that I'd say, hey, it's free range and organic, pesticide free, medication free, no meat, no dairy. But people used to love it. So yeah, I think when a lot of times when people give birth, they go into this mode of thinking they have to just take care of their baby, and they forget that the way you take care of your baby is you take amazing care of yourself, so that you have the energy and the stamina and the health to be there and be a great mom.
Yeah, Dr. Goldner, I'm not pregnant, but I'm feeling quite hungry right now, and I think I need to go make a green smoothie.
No, I'm making the green smoothie. Yeah,
okay, you make it for me. Smoothie. No, you make it.
My husband makes the smoothies now, and we give free recipes away. My husband and I, we feel like the gift we were given is one you have to share. You don't just heal and get your life back and get to grow old together and not give that gift back. So we teach all of our protocols and our recipes for free, 100%. The only time anyone ever pays me is because they want to hire me personally to spend my time with them every day to make sure they get better. But all the protocols on how to heal are 100% for free. So we have a website. Maybe you guys can put it down, smoothieshred.com. And if you go to smoothieshred.com, you don't have to put your email address in or anything. You can get free recipes for our favorite smoothies. There's free videos on how to add smoothies to your life, even if you're not plant-based yet, even if you're in the early stages, how to add what you're missing to your life, and as well as like our daily vlogs that we do to help people and encourage them. And so all of that is on that website, and it's a gift we give. We do live Q&As as much as we can to keep people focused and answer their questions, because we just want to see everybody healthy and happy and living their best life the way we get to be.
So much good information in there. And I love that, we went beyond the vitamin D and vitamin B, because really that's overdone. And I say to people, like, should I? And I'm like, well, what does your blood say? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, well, then I don't know. You know what I mean?
I don't like making things up. Everything I do and everything I teach comes from results. That's it. Because people can argue with you about theories. Like as soon as you say a theory, they can argue with you. But they can't argue with results. So when you say, if you look at your blood test, then we'll know if you need B12. Right? Otherwise, it's this esoteric. I mean, I've seen some very well-known vegans get into like public media fights with each other about B12. And I'm like, this is ridiculous and it's pointless because we don't really have a solid answer. I mean, in my book, if T. Colin Campbell doesn't know, then we don't know. Right. So why don't we just check and then we don't have to freak out about it anymore, right? Someone just asked me about omega-3s. How do you know that the omega-3s are being converted? And I teach that in depth in my classes, but it's because I used to use fish oil back in the day when I first started working with people, and I saw the benefits it added. Then I decided that this is not necessary, got really great results using flax and chia seeds, and I can see the result, right? So I know, like, someone doesn't have any omega-3s in their life and they're not doing well, then I add the omega-3s and boom, they start doing much better. The result shows it's working. Like we have a result versus a theory. So whenever people ask me questions, even from the stage, they'll be like, what are your feelings about coconut oil. I'm like, I don't have feelings about any of this. This isn't my religion. I have results we can talk about. I can tell you what happened in my clients and how their cholesterol shot through the roof when they started eating it. That's what I could tell you about. So yeah, I think you're right. I think the arguments we have are so silly because we just need to talk about what's happening. And this is the best thing in the world. I mean, even people who are doing it halfway, they're still doing better than they could. And my specialty really has been in the area of how do you optimize plant-based diets. So my version is definitely the most strict, most focused on micronutrients, but it's why it works for people who are on other plant-based diets who get sick. It always rescues them. So the answer is never, I need to go back to meat. It's, I need to nourish myself more.
That's awesome. Is there anywhere else you want people to reach out to you on social media?
Oh, yeah. So I'm everywhere. I'm finally on Instagram. That's going well, but I've always liked more people to talk to. So I'm at Goodbye Lupus. So Goodbye Lupus on Instagram. It's Goodbye Lupus on Facebook. It's Goodbye Lupus by Brooke Goldner, MD. And then on Twitter, it's at Vegan Medical Doc. And YouTube, you can also find me. It's youtube.com/Brooke Goldner, MD. But if you look up Goodbye Lupus or Brooke Goldner, you can find me there too. And I've been blogging every day now. I'm hip now, and I'm trying to do that. And what's super cool is I've gotten messages from people that I haven't heard from in a year or so or longer who said that they had started to fall off the wagon and fall off track. And because I've been making videos every day, they got inspired to get back to it. So I know that it's working. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to inspire people to take action because there's nothing better than feeling amazing and taking care of yourself. And it's just the decision that's hard. So I'm working hard to try to get people to take action every day. And so if you go to smoothieshred.com, you'll also find links to everything as well there.
Yeah, and you're doing great, meaningful work, and really do appreciate everything you're doing. And we're going to put all those links in our show notes at planttrainers.com. We'll also link to all the interviews that we did with all those doctors that you previously mentioned. And we're so grateful to have you on the show today. We really appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much. It was fun to see you guys again.
Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers Podcast. We want to make sure that you subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platform.
We really appreciate the feedback we receive from you every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans. It really helps other people find us just like you did.
Thanks so much to our patrons. To become a patron, visit us at patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference in the quality of the show.
And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle is at Plant Trainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at planttrainers.com for awesome recipes, a list of our services, and of course, our latest podcast.
We encourage you to email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so that we can help you improve your quality of life through nutrition and fitness.
So we hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time and have a healthy day. Or is that too corny?
It's a little cheesy.